Sorry about that. So we'll look at how to understand the cost of our food production, learn the different pricing strategies we can adopt, and perhaps see which one is best for us to use. Why should we even use that strategy in the first place? We would clearly define or help you understand why profitability doesn't mean so much in business. What is really important is cash flow. So, but then we'll see how you can balance profitability and cash flow so you keep winning and then getting more customers, right? And then we'll finally conclude with some tips in terms of financial intelligence activities you can do just to keep track of your business and ensure you continue to make money, because I believe all of us are here to make money one way or the other. So let's quickly dive right into it. Okay, since we are eight, I would have loved us to introduce ourselves a little bit. It's not so much of a full house. So if you don't mind, I'll call you. Just tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what you hope to get out of this class, right? Since I've already talked about the objectives. So the first on my list here is Nena's iPhone. Nena, are you with us? Is Nena able to unmute and speak? Our class is going to be really interactive, so I am not the sort of person that just talk and talk and talk. I always like when my audience also get to contribute to whatever we're discussing. So this is a good way to start that contribution. If Nina is quite busy right now, no problem. How about you, Kehinde Akonji? Are you with us? Hello, Kehinde. Okay, Adanna Ago, are you here? Immaculate, can you hear me? Is it me or is it that my audience are not following?
I can hear you clear.
Okay, great. So I don't think it's me then. That's fine. Okay, Noah, are you with me? Hi, Noah. That's Noah's iPhone. You guys are big men and women.
You can unmute yourself so you can be able to
Yeah, I
speak.
believe they can unmute themselves if they want to speak. So, oh, sorry. I thought everybody is already used to Zoom. That should have been one housekeeping. That should have come up. But if you want to speak, please just use the mic button, tap it to unmute yourself, and we could hear you. But I believe if I call you to speak, you would definitely want to speak, so that's fine. Okay, Noah is still not with us, but I know Rebecca unmuted her mic earlier. Let's hear from Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. Good afternoon, Rebecca. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, and you?
Awesome. So let's meet you, please.
Okay, I'm Rebecca. I'm a quality assurance officer in a pharmaceutical company.
Interesting. Quality assurance pharmaceutical company. Are you looking to start your food business? I know your guy is not here listening to you. I hope he's not here, Sha. So, well, let's not put you on the spot. Are you looking to start out a food business anytime soon? Or maybe just start out something on your own, whether pharmaceutical or food, whatever it is?
Yeah, but it's still a like an idea. Let me put it like that.
Of course, we all start from ideas. The power of entrepreneurship is our ability to what's it called? Our ability to execute. So I hope you can get to it quickly, and that would be awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So what do you hope to get out of this class?
I hope to get more knowledge on how to start up a business, and I hope by the end of this class I'll be able to take up the step.
Interesting. I love how broad how to start up a business. Interestingly, this is just one part of starting up a business. And when I was negotiating this topic with Immaculate, I was like, there's a canvas that tells a whole lot about starting up a business. That's called the business model canvas. It's just a one page of your business plan. It might take you months to prepare a business plan, but this one is something you can do within 30 minutes to an hour, and that's fine. I hope we can get to do that some other time. But today we'll pay more attention to pricing, which is one of the blocks of the business model canvas. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I really enjoyed that conversation. I wish you all the best. And feel free to participate as much as you can. Yeah, welcome. So how about you, Bukola? Hi, Bukola. Are you with us? Bukola Awoyemi. Is she here? Okay, great. So, hi, Bukola. Sorry about that, Bukola Awoyemi.
It's Bukola Awoyemi.
Yeah, I noticed. Thank you for that correction. So Bukola, what do you do?
Actually, I work as a chef in in retail. But for
Okay.
now, same time, later on, I intend to establish my own company in future, but not now, but in future. So I want to have knowledge about how to establish and how to place value in my product and some other things.
That's
so that is
fantastic.
why
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's good to have
I
a
still
chat.
want to go out to get more experience. Like, I don't want to settle for now. I still want to go out before I set up my own business. So that is why I'm a partaker to this training.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see your business start, grow, and thrive. For now. But it's good to have you on the call, and thank you so much for that correction, Bukola Owoyemi. I think we have more persons who joined us. Thank you so much, Bukola. Some other persons who joined us would be okay, I believe that's all. I've called others, they didn't respond, so I believe we can move on. So it's nice to see your goal and where you are at currently. This course is good for you, whether you're starting a business or you're working for an organization, or you hope to start a business in the next future, or you've even already started the business. One way or the other, it is good to know how best, either as an employee, you can advise your employers to take care of their pricing and remain competitive, or make more money in the long way, or for yourself, how best you can position your solution in a way and manner that you will definitely be profitable, and not just profitable, you will remain in business. You see, pricing goes beyond those stickers you see on products, 100 naira per value, buy 3 and get 1 free. Pricing goes beyond numbers, really. Pricing is a perception of value. I always tell entrepreneurs this, that for me to pay you something, I must see that I will get value, out of it, right? That's why in many instances, there are some very cheap products in the market. People will not buy them simply because they know that, when you buy that product, you will not get value out of it. For example, also, there are some telcos in Nigeria that you will never buy their data service. I don't know how it is in some region, but here in Lagos, there's a particular telco that if I buy the data service, it's a waste of time. I will not enjoy it. And the data is very cheap, right? It is cheap, but you can't use it. So that's what we need to understand around pricing. It's not about how cheap a product is or about how expensive a product is. See pricing from the perspective of how much value can a customer capture from using your product or service? Because it is when your customer can balance that value with the price you put or the amount you put as a tag on that product, that is when they can then pay you that amount. If they don't see value in that, then that's a problem. We've seen scenarios where businesses don't price themselves right. And because of that, they begin to die slowly. They start losing customers, right? This telco business, I'm telling you, the reason why it is still functional is not because of the pricing, really. It's not because of the pricing that's make it still in service. It just have opportunity to have some sort of licensing. And that license is what is leveraged to make more money. But in terms of value provided in its pricing, many customers don't really see it, right? That's the reason why some particular telcos are everywhere compared to the others, even though their pricing is much more expensive. But the value customers see using that other telco makes a lot of sense. When you have good pricing, then it means for sure sustainability and growth is assured. So for all of us, I want us to have it at the back of your mind. Don't see pricing as a number. In fact, let's replace pricing with value. And then you clearly understand what we are trying to speak here. Pricing goes beyond the amount you put as a sticker on your product. I would like to ask you, okay, I think we don't have anyone here who says he's running a business, but if it's not about you, perhaps you can think around where you work. How do you currently determine the price for your product or service? I would love to hear from you. If it is not about your own product and service, it could be about your work. Like, how do they come about saying this drug should cost 100 naira? Or how do they come about saying a plate of this particular food, should be 2005? A cocktail should be 10,000 or something. How do they come about those pricing? I would like you to share, please. Anybody here who can help us out with that? It's an icebreaker session. Olajide, you're welcome. How are you doing today? Wow, apparently I'll be speaking to myself a whole lot. This class will be boring, oh.
I'm fine, thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Olajide. How are you doing today?
Good.
Great. Are you running a business or are you working for an organization?
I'm working currently.
Awesome. Do you want to help us out? Where you work, how do you currently determine the price of your product and service?
I can't really say something about that for now. Probably maybe as the meeting goes on, we'll have something. I just joined.
Interesting. Okay, so that's fine. It's understandable if you are not among the decision makers that make that happen. So that's awesome. Anybody else who can help us out? Maybe just to share. What have you observed as a way they determine the price of their product or service? Okay.
So I don't know if I just want to say something.
Please go ahead, Imaki.
Is Imaki? Oh, to determine my pricing for our services, because basically our business revolve around services. We kind of put together every of our expenses, starting from, even if it's as little as even core cards, data that we use for our research. We put them all together, and that is what gives us this more like operational cost. All of our operational.
Thank you very much. I think that's something. I'm looking at the operational side of things to determine that value. Thank you so much. So that's really your costs, virtually all your costs. So when you look at the cost, what then do you do to that cost? How do you determine the final price you're supposed to get?
Okay. After that, I still have to put into consideration what the market says about the services we render. Awesome. And also, okay, is actually what the market now says about the services we render. Our operational costs will now determine, okay, this is actually what the price of each of our services should be at the end of the day.
Great. So after looking at your costs, you then benchmark it with what the market already says, right? With your competition.
Yes, if it's in line, or if there is any difference, if there is a difference, that will now make us to know, okay, this is actually what we should be able to add to be able to determine what our profit at the end of the day will be.
Awesome.
Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be too high in our pricing so that people it will pursue customers, intending customers away from us. We still want to, okay, even if after our operational cost, any other thing we are adding into it as our profit should not be far from, as in the outlier should not be far from what the market says about the services.
Thank you very much. So what I'll get from you is you look at your costs and then you benchmark your pricing. You look at what the competition already does in terms of pricing, and then you then subtract the difference to see if your margin can function properly for you or not. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate Immaculate for that contribution. Nena, I wanted to say something. Nena, can we hear you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. What I wanted to say was similar to what Immaculate said. I just wanted to say that though I'm not like part of the decision makers in that regard, but I think it will depend on like cost of production and maybe miscellaneous. And like she mentioned, in terms of what other people are doing, because you also want your distinct product or service to be competitive.
Thank you so much, Nena. So we have two persons who use cost of production with competition to determine their pricing. And that makes a whole lot of sense. You see, the next slide boils down to that fact of what you said in regards to costs. But then the cost shouldn't just be your production costs. There are some other inherent costs you need to factor, to start your pricing template with. For example, there are fixed costs. Irrespective of whether you sell or not, these costs must be borne. So it could be your rent, it could be your salaries. If you pay your employees, data costs, telephone calls, internet costs, cleaning, if you have janitors who clean for you, whether you sell or not, these costs are fixed and you must always spend it. So factor those fixed costs. That's one. Then the next now becomes the variable cost. The variable costs are dependent on your sales, your production capacity, and your sales, right? So the cost, like he says, varies depending on how you walk into play or how your performance looks like on that particular day, that period you are considering to produce or to work with. So that's the variable cost. Now you bring out that cost. Then there are some other hidden costs that you just cannot determine it. It is not fixed. It is not variable. For example, time. You see, the time you spend taking care of some certain things can be translated to money. Happily in Nigeria here, our employees are majorly paid on a month-end basis, a fixed rate per month. In some other areas, like in Europe, they are paid by time, per hour of what they work, right? So that's to help us understand that time is one particular factor that many of us should look at. And in some instances, we've seen that employees have so many things that crouch into what they do in a day. So an employee is supposed to close a particular task today, but so many things came up, from gisting to watching Facebook, to laughing on WhatsApp status, to several other, come and do this for me, can you help me with that and stuff. He's not able to deliver on what his activity is for that specific month. But you definitely pay him, right? You don't know how much of time is lost. You can't really estimate that. So these are kind of hidden. But it's already a cost you're paying for, because what he's not able to do, you are rolling it over to the next month. What he should have done this time around. Transport is another thing, right? Transport depends on your choice of whether you want to go out or not. The transport here, it's not necessarily the logistics you have to incur in shipping your product and services, right? That one is already part of your variable cost. It's already tied to your production costs, from the factory down to the consumer. All of those costs are already inherent one way or the other, right? So you can already estimate that I have 10 cartons is what I'm producing. I'm going to send these 10 cartons to this customer, that customer. You already know how to do that, how to sell, how to move that goods to those persons. So those costs are varied. They are not really hidden, because you have an idea of that, right? But the transport here includes other logistics expense, transport to meetings, transport to go and look for customers, transport to go and handle some issues that didn't come up. In some instances, as the CEO of the company, even your transport to work and back, is something you might want to factor into your expense, not though your employees have such areas. Then one other hidden cost could also be spoilage, really. For example, if you are in the perishable goods side of things, you need to factor in the fact that sometimes that chicken that you bought in bulk quantity, electricity might become a nightmare, and then it begins to spoil. That tomatoes you had procured, thinking that it will serve you for a whole week, because you want to save money, you bought it bulk. Before you discover it, some part of it are already rotting and you cannot use it. So there are some element of spoilage that will come. You really can't determine this. These are factors that are much more beyond you, and these are more of hidden costs. But you need to have an idea of what these costs are, perhaps looking at historical records for the past 6 months or for the past 1 year. What has been like the average month on month? Or if you are just starting out, you need to understand what are competitors saying about these things. The Mama Put that is in my area, how does she manage that? How much has she expended on things like this? Or if he's looking at quick service restaurant, for example, how much of spoilage are these persons experiencing? So you can gather historical data from both your own self and also from what your competitors are already doing, and try to factor in that cost one way or the other to be on a safer place. So it's not just about your operational costs, really. It's not just the cost of your production. There are several other costs you need to pull down into play as you're determining, your pricing. Here's an activity that can help you clearly understand what we're talking about. So I wish you would take maybe 2 or 3 minutes on your own to just think through this for whatever it is you want to do. It could be a product you want to sell, a service you want to sell, or you can even pick a specific product you're already aware of, right? If you want to, and try to see how you can break down that cost using this worksheet. I'm very sure Immaculate she had made this, there's a workbook I sent to her in Microsoft Word. I hope she had made it available to you. If not, I'm very sure you also get it after this class. It has this content, into it. So pick one. Look at the ingredient, for example. How much sort of ingredients do you need to produce these things? What is the packaging amount you need? How much does that package cost? Do you need to burn anything on fuel, on gas, either to prepare, to electrify, to move, and stuff like that? In terms of your time, labor costs to make this work, transportation expenses. Are you gonna pay rent? If you own the house, that is awesome. But there's always a cost in accounting. There's always a cost even to a house that you own. It is called depreciation cost, right? All assets you own are set to depreciate in value one way or the other. The house itself depreciates, the land appreciates, right? So there's a way they do those factor in that depreciation and the appreciation value. But there's a cost inherent there, even if you own the house. But if you don't own it, then that's fine. You can put in your rents, and that will make a lot of sense to you. Are there other utilities you pay? Electricity bill, Loma bill, water bill that comes into it? And what can you factor in as spoilage or waste, right? Could there be any other cost here that we've not even looked at yet? For example, telephone cost for your employees, for yourself, data cost, for such things, marketing and advertising costs, right? In case you want to do a lot of things on YouTube, on Instagram, several of those areas, how much of these things, do you think you can specify? And by the time you sit down to build up that cost, you can then have a clear sense of what, you are spending really, trying to produce this particular asset or not. Sorry, it's a Saturday and my kids are with me. So just a moment, please. Apologies, please. Thank you very much for your understanding. So that's what the cost breakdown, typically look like for you. And it's very good you have a clear sense of what these costs look like, because it is from that you can then measure or begin to set your pricing for that product or service that you have in mind. So now you've determined your cost. How then can you now determine the value or the price your customers will get to pay you? There are several models people adopt, but I would love to talk about just 4 of these models. There are already models many of us are familiar with. For example, Nena and Immaculate spoke about competition-based pricing, where you, after building your cost, you look at what your competitors are doing, and then you kind of like see how you can balance yourself to remain in business. Some other persons do what we call cost-plus pricing. And what cost-plus pricing means is that you look at your costs and then you add a margin, a specific margin to that cost, right? And then you determine, okay, I think I'm spending 100 naira on everything I'm doing in terms of cost. A 30% margin will be sufficient for me. So because of that, you'll begin to sell your product at 130 naira. That's something, but I don't really encourage entrepreneurs to use a cost-plus pricing, because it doesn't really see the value involved, in many of these things. It's a huge problem. Those who do cost-plus pricing should be majorly retailers, right? It has worked very well in retail business. You are distributing Coca-Cola. Let me not say Coke before they will say we are selling something else. You're distributing Coca-Cola, maybe Right Foods, biscuits, Gala. Then you can do maybe cost plus pricing model, where you look at the cost you bought this item and then just add a little margin to it. Whether you like it or not, you can't go beyond that one way or the other. So that's something nice. In fact, the manufacturers have already fix the pricing for this item to allow you to at least make a token out of it. So that's awesome. That's cost plus. The next one is value-based pricing. And this is very, very useful when you're doing something entirely new, like you are launching out a product, a new sort of experience. Nobody has done it before, or even if somebody is doing it before, the person is far away from you. So within that, your neighborhood, you happen to be the only person that is providing such a similar service. And then value becomes something you can add to it. People will be so keen to buy from you. So value-based pricing is more focused on looking at the sort of ambience, environment. What are the additional value adds that your customer gets when they use your service? I tell people that there's a big reason why a bottle of Coke on the road, on the highway is say 350. When you're buying it off, on the road, maybe in traffic, 350 or so. By the time you go to a store, it will be say 400, depending on where that store is located. By the time you go to say a restaurant, you'll be buying it at say 600. And when you go to say a hotel chain, you'll be buying a bottle of Coke at sometimes 900, 1,000, even I've seen a place where a glass of Coke, not even a bottle, a glass of Coke was sold for 5,000 naira, right? And people were buying it just because there was a glass, the environment, the people who come there to drink this Coke are big boys, and then there were some ice cubes inside it, one way or the other. And these are not Cokes that were chilled in a freezer. These are just direct bottle Cokes as they were brought. It is the ice cubes that were used to chill this experience, and people were buying it. Yes, I even bought it then, I could remember, just based on where I found myself. On a very good day, I will not buy it. So I paid for it because I saw the value in the environment itself, and I was able to buy it. That works, because I couldn't get that experience anywhere else, one way or the other, right? And I wouldn't want to also embarrass myself. So another value is I don't want to embarrass myself, It's like when you go to a fast food to buy food, you notice that one of the most expensive thing in a fast food is always a bottle of water. Has anybody experienced that before? One of the most expensive. In fact, fast food, quick service restaurants make more money selling water than selling the drinks. That's just the truth, right? Because they know as far as you're going to buy food, you'll definitely buy water. And you would not want to, water is a very, very essential commodity in whatever it is that you're selling. So you will not want to embarrass yourself or get choked out because you're eating and then there's no water. You likely have to buy it. The value is what people are selling to you one way or the other. And then the fourth one now will be your bundled pricing. And this has been utilized very well by some quick service restaurants like Chicken Republic and I think The Place. What they do, rather than selling you go and point, give me a portion of rice. Okay, I'd love to have chicken. I would love to have this and that. Chicken Republic will just tell you, come and buy this particular combo, right? And then that combo already has the rice, the meat, the water, and then there's a fixed price for it. And the combo is much more cheaper, but it allows them to sell more product at once and then get more margin along the line. So when you do such practices, then you are using what we call the bundled pricing strategy, where you're combining multiple products and service, multiple products together, and then selling it at a discount price. By the time you aggregate all the profit, all the margins you will get from each of those products you sold out, you've discovered that it can cover for whatever loss that may have arose if you were selling each of those items as it comes. This table is just to give us a clearer picture of what these various forms of pricing looks like. So I call it repricing jollof rice. Yeah? So somebody knows that a portion of preparing jollof rice, the cost of a portion of jollof rice is say 400 naira. Right. This is how the four different pricing model now comes into play. The first guy or the first seller can say, okay, I want to sell that jollof rice at 500 naira because I'm very satisfied with 25% margin. I believe once I do 25% margin, I'm okay. So he just do 400 times 1.25. That is 25% margin, and he gets his 500 naira, and he's good selling that price. Another person will come and say, no, I think I'm providing a good ambience. They're coming to eat in a space packed with AC. I'm using a healthy plate, place that you can even eat all at once while you do all of those things. My customers are more health conscious. So this is not those starchy rice. In fact, I'm using some sort of basmati rice, adding some veggies to the jollof rice and stuff like that. Because of this additional value involved in preparing my jollof rice, I would rather sell it at 800. And I think when the customers begin to see the orishirishis in it, they will not be bothered that, how come 500 is now 800? And yes, there are customers that would always go to that spot because of the taste of that jollof rice and the value that goes around it, and they will pay 800 for it. So it is not just a function. Take note, all of this additional thing is already factored into the cost, or some of these additional have already factored into the production cost of that jollof rice. But just because of the way they packaged it, experience is now different, and somebody will pay for such experience, right? Another thing again could be the competition-based pricing. So this man now said, there is The Place here that sells this for 600. There's Chicken Republic that sells for 600. There's a Tantalizer that sells for 600. There's this Buka that even sells for 500. I think if I'm to be competitive in this location, let me just adopt the 600 standard every other person has been selling. So that is competition-based. But then the bundled or tiered pricing now looks like, well, I can also make it better. Why not just add a piece of meat, add a bottle of drink to it, and then let's put it at 1,002. Normally, if they were to buy that meat, say they'll buy the rice 600, they'll buy the meat, say 300. That's already 900 naira. They'll buy the bottle of drink, say 600. That's already 1,005. But you said you should bundle all of these things together and sell it at 1,002. The person will decide to buy it. By the time you look at all the costs you'll make out of this, you will still be making profit. So this is a clear sense of how best you can look at for what works for you. Well, for example, what sort of customers are coming to visit you? How does your competitor relate? Is there competition at all? Where there's competition, then yes, use a competition-based method. But where there's no competition, where you're entirely doing something entirely new in that system, can you use a value-based approach? Because customers would really pay when they see the value in that regard. But one thing I want you to understand is that pricing is something that undergoes constant change. It's something you repeatedly look at every day, because we know how Nigeria is. The price of something today, 8 a.m., might not necessarily be the same price of that thing by 12 a.m. that day. The price can change. So always revisit your pricing model and be very sure that you are, using the right one. And feel free to change. You can jump from value-based to competition. If competition, you can start with value-based. And they notice that so many persons have seen that you are successful. They are now coming to open shop around you. You can decide to remain competitive, right? And that would be awesome. Or choose to bundle your solutions together or your offerings together and then get better margin. That would also go a long way in helping you manage your pricing. So I hope you understand all I am trying to say. This is meant to be like a basics of the class, So, but feel free, if you have any question, feel free to note them down. I'm very sure towards the end of the session, I can take some questions and then answer them. So next now would be, now you have determined your price. One thing you should know about your price is that your pricing should be built to ensure two things. One is profit and two is cash flow. Profit is nice. That's just the truth. Every business operates with a view to make as much profit as possible. So if the specific pricing you choose gives you a very huge margin, which happens mostly in value-based pricing. For example, there's this trade war that's going on between US and China recently. Some of us have heard, and then where some of these China resellers were coming to expose how much it really costs to produce some of the high-end luxury goods, in China. And then they sell it at huge cost. I was so amazed at one particular item that cost less than $100 or so, and the item is sold for over $10,000, right? But then we shouldn't take those things to heart. China is very good at imitation. So how are we even sure that it is the original you're buying one way or the other in many of those disclaimers or people that came up to start saying things? But then this is to bring to the fore that when value is attached to whatever it is you're selling, there's possibility you can make a very huge, high margin. But then margin should not be everything. Cash flow should be the major thing you should consider. So while you're trying to balance your pricing model and the price you will adopt to be profitable, can you also look out for a model that allows you to have running money entering into the business day in, day out? One of my mentors once broke down these things into three things. He said some pricing models allows you to enjoy the dew, some allows you to enjoy the rain, and some allows you to enjoy a flood, right? For example, luxury end pricing models. Those ones are like flood. Once they sell like this, money is everywhere, a very huge profit. But then you might sell maybe one, some limited edition, maybe they'll just do 10 or 100 items for over 8 billion people in the whole world. So they're only looking for 100 people, that will buy this item, right? And they're fine with it because the margin they get from each item is fine. But then there's a stress. What if suddenly there's no 100 persons who is willing? Maybe there's a, what's it called? There is recession in the economy, or maybe those that usually used to buy high-end goods, suddenly policies changed. And then EFCC is now beginning to pursue these persons or see them as targets. And you know what that means in Nigeria. That becomes a huge problem. So that's what flooding does. When you do a business that looks like it is a flood in terms of profit, every money is just everywhere, be very careful because flooding comes once in a while, really, and then flooding comes with its own inherent things. What you should enjoy will be the rain. These are businesses that ensures that at least something will come. In a month, you'll make sale. The sale might not be so big, right? But at least, as far as 10 persons walk in front of your shop, 2 persons would buy, and that's fine. And another one is the dew. The dew means that no matter every morning, there's always dew. So that is even the best of the pricing models. No matter how bad or cheap it is, somebody would always come to buy. And that is the soul of every business. You see, if you don't build your pricing model in a manner that every day money comes in, it becomes difficult for you to keep running that business. That is why many persons will always tell you that cash flow is king. Profit is good, but cash flow is king. There are several businesses that looked so profitable, but they were having serious cash flow issues. And there are some other businesses that have been running on loss for years, but yet cash keeps flowing through them. And that becomes very interesting, right? One of such examples can be Jumia, for example. For years, Jumia did not make profits in whatever it is that they were doing, but people kept on buying from Jumia. And then there was always commission that they were earning, no matter how little, it kept on coming. The business was growing and investors were seeing it. They were seeing the cash flow coming in. They kept on investing in a business that was not profitable for years. Until today, they are still investing and selling their shares. But there are some other businesses highly profitable, but have cash flow issues. Suddenly you hear that those businesses have collapsed or they folded simply because of that issue of not managing cash flow well. So I would advise you build your pricing model in a way that an everyday person can buy. And if you are going more into luxury assets or luxurious pricing, make sure the location, the dynamics, the market, everything around you will make that your luxury location to have cash flow issues. I mean, not to have cash flow issues in a manner that liquidity is always going to happen. People will always come to buy and sell, and you will enjoy all of that. But just a way to help you understand this, when we talk about profit, There are two types of profit. You have the gross profit, you have the net profit. Gross profit is majorly before you handle your operational expense, like before you look into your hidden costs as well as your fixed costs. You know, the money you get by the time you remove your revenue from your variable costs. That is what gross profit looks like. But net profit is the money that remains with you by the time you factored all the other costs we looked at. That is the fixed cost, the variable cost, as well as the hidden cost. If there's any money left with you, then that's net profit. While cash flow is majorly looking at how money comes into your business and how money goes out into your business. You need money to keep running your business every day. So try to make sure you manage that effectively. And I'm very sure you will stay positive. And one other thing, again, is to always look out for your break-even point. Now you've determined what your costs look like. You've determined a very good model to set your pricing, whether you see yourself using a cost-plus model or a value-based model or using a competition-based model or whatever model you use. You need to then estimate or look out for yourself how much of your product or service would you need to sell to become profitable, right? How much of your product or service would you need to sell to become profitable? What break-even helps you to do is to help you understand clearly at what point will your business become profitable. And when you know that point, you can then begin to push your salespeople or push your sales targets in a manner that you can bring that profitability as close as possible. So a very good way to calculate your break-even point will be looking at your fixed costs. For example, your rent, your salaries, every other thing that is fixed. You know you must spend this thing, whether you do business or not. You will now divide it by your selling price minus your variable cost. I would also advise you add your hidden costs to your variable costs. So not just variable costs. So add your hidden plus variable together, then subtract it from your selling price, and then divide your fixed cost by that amount. That should let you understand that, okay, I will need to sell this particular amount of product for me to be very sure that I'm going to make profit. If you are not able to estimate that, then whatever effort you are doing on sales, I don't think you are willing to do a big business. Maybe you just want to run a family small scale business where you are not bothered. For example, my mom has a shop that she sells. She's retired. What will she do, mom? She said, oh, she doesn't want to sit at home. So she just wants to open a store where she can sell groceries and stuff like that. My mom is just there. Whether the business is not a problem for her because she's not relying heavily on the business. That's just the truth. For her, anytime there's cash flow issues in the business, her children are there to back her up, right? Her pension is there to support her one way or the other. How many years remains for her, to do all of these things? So, except that is the kind of business you are looking at handling, which I know that's not, then break-even should not be an issue for you. But if you're very sure you are looking at running a business and you want that business as a whole, please, Adanna Aku, can you help us with your mic? Thank you. Adanna, please. Okay, so if that's not what you are looking out for, then no problem. Try your very best as you set up your pricing, look at your cost and your profits to make sure you know at what point you will break even. That way you can begin to push your sales activities in a more realistic manner, setting the right sales target. One thing I've also seen this help me with is when I discovered that the sales team I have might not be able to reach this realistic target for break even, it means I need to get more salespersons on board. So I continuously have to review that to know how this would be for us. And it's a bit challenging in our own sector because prices, most of the things we do, for example, in food processing, the bulk of your expense, the bulk of variation comes from transportation, I guess. Of course, I know FX affects some of the things that you do. But for us, FX is a major challenge for us. So this morning, it is up. Next morning, it is down. And trust me, when it comes down, nobody is going down. Everybody is waiting for when it to go up again. So they will increase everything again. And once it goes up, bringing it down becomes a problem. So I continuously have to monitor how this market goes so that I can clearly focus on the break-even points and see how best we can remove that and remain profitable. It would be a good thing for you to also look at as you build your business. In that worksheet that was sent to you, there is also this tool that helps you determine your pricing strategy. Sorry, who's this person? Adana. Adana, so I've muted you. Can you be mindful when you come into the call so we can manage the sound very well? So it's also in that worksheet. It's going to help you out in, developing your pricing for whatever product or service you want to offer. So the general idea here is pick a specific product and then determine based on where you want to sell that product, which of this pricing model do you think will work best? Because we are looking at one specific product, there will be no need to bring the bundled or tiered pricing into this, because bundled or tiered pricing means adding 2 or more products together and then determine what the price could be. So you could choose cost plus. I will not recommend cost plus, but you can say you are satisfied with cost plus, where what you're looking at is the cost it costs you, what it will cost you to produce that unit, then multiplied by a margin, Rather, I would suggest you use the other 2, which are value-based or competition-based. And value-based, like I said, is if you are doing something entirely new, are there some sort of experiences your customer will get, and they'll be so willing to pay for that experience because they cannot get it anywhere else, right? Then that's awesome. Then the next one is then the competition-based, where you look at what the market is currently doing, especially when you're doing something in a highly saturated market or even is saturated market, right? What are they doing? Can you benchmark their price? And that would be awesome. For example, if you are running a booker for example, there's a limit in which you can set the price of your booker, to be. If you are selling a specific type of drug, except if there are some special constituents in that drug that every other person doesn't have, increasing your price might not make a lot of sense. You might want to, compete, look at the competition and set, that competition. There must be something else you are bringing into that drug to make you want to increase the price above your competition. What you rather want to do is maybe reduce the price a little so that you can make more money, and get the market. So select whatever strategy works best for you. You already have the pricing, the cost breakdown analysis tool to help you determine what the cost to produce one unit would be. Then either strategy you use will allow you to know if you go to point 2 or go to point 3 or go to point 4, right? And based on that, you can then adopt what your final pricing, could look like. We're already running out of time. There's a whole lot I wish I could say, but time will fail us. This is supposed to be a 1-hour session, even though we started 10 minutes late. So I think it would be nice for me to just summarize all we've discussed. Then any other thing I would say will be dependent on if you have questions to address that. And I would definitely answer those questions. So what have we discussed so far? Pricing is very key in your business. Pricing could determine whether your business will stay in business or whether it's going to close down. So understanding your costs is something that will help you, to determine the best price for yourself. There are different pricing models. Depending on the market you play in, will determine which pricing model you're going to use. Just ensure you monitor the market very well, you study the market very well, and then you're able to choose the best models for you. And to better clearly understand if your pricing is effective or not, there are some tools you might want to download online or check online, or even use Excel, to build by yourself, and that will help you out. You already have the cost sheets, which I know you'll get. There are margin tracker. What margin tracker helps you to do is help you for each product you sell, you are looking at the cost price and the sales price. This happens if you are in a business where somebody can come and negotiate your price. Majorly, it is resellers that do these things. For example, somebody that runs a pharmacy store and he wants to negotiate in some instances, he might be able to do such margin tracker. So what it allows him to do is look at how much this cost is and how much he finally sells it. In some instances, the sales price might be different depending on the customer that comes in one way or the other. It's good to track that margin though, because there's a way your analysis will get to. You can then, after a particular period in time of running either competitive based or running either value based, you can then fall back to a cost plus, model, simply because your analysis has shown that over the course of years of running this business, this has always been what the margin looked like. It has not really changed. So as far as you are doing that same thing, then why not just move? So margin tracker help you understand that better. Then there's also a break-even calculator you can look online. It will itemize all your costs together and get to see when you can, break even. So you arrange your sales targets to meet that. Please, whatever you do in your business, whether you're an employee or you're an employer or you're a business owner, I would advise you try your best to monitor your margins weekly, or advise your employer or your sales team to monitor the margins, weekly. How much do you really make? Because it is that margins that you use in running the business. It is that margins that takes care of your fixed costs and your hidden costs. If the margin doesn't make sense, then the business is going to fold, right? That is why I said making profit doesn't necessarily mean running a business. You can be making profit and then cash flow becomes an issue simply because you did not get your margin right. It is always nice you set daily sales targets. This allows you to have daily money entering into your business. Somebody sells one device or one particular product, and he gets 100 naira in profit out of that product, but he only sells that product once in a month. Another person sells multiple that same product or a similar product, and then he gets 10 naira from each product, right? But in a day, he's able to sell 20 of that product. That means, unlike the other guy that gets 100 naira once a month, this other guy gets 200 naira every day. He makes more money. So can you look out for your sales targets, make it realistic enough, and try and see if there's something you can do to sell every day? Because when you sell every day, then you can make more money. The quicker you're able to convert inventory to cash, the more richer you are able to become in whatever business, you are running. Then every year, try to always review your pricing. What has changed in your pricing, and what's the competitor currently doing? Initially, you might have felt there's no competitor in the space, but next year it might have changed. Somebody might have seen you open a shop there, and then clusters are now coming to open around you. So you need to look out for that and see if you can adjust your price. And each time you go to the market to buy something for your product or service, are you able to record what you bought in terms of the receipt, how much those items are, and can you make it reflect exactly on your pricing model so that you remain, in business? Some businesses have been strategic about this. So what they do is that they don't necessarily allow every fluctuation in price each time they go to the market to affect their own selling price. What they rather do is they set a margin. So if this fluctuation is between plus or minus 5%, they will not do anything. Maybe if it gets to 7% or 10% or 20%, they know they have to go back to the drawing board and readjust that price. Are you able to also do that for your business? Set, a set of criteria you want to look before you can adjust your price each time you go to the market to make purchases, each time you make procurements. I think that would be nice. So these are a summary of what we have discussed. Interestingly, is this person just joining the call right when we are finishing? I believe I will have to stop here. Sorry, I've taken so much time. I wish there's many things I could talk about, but I have just 1 hour to do this. And at this moment, I would rather prefer to take questions to see if there's anything else I missed that I haven't said. So thank you so much. Immaculate, I don't know if you want to handle the Q&A directly.
Okay, I will. Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for this insightful section. I don't know if you have any question, just use the raise hand icon, or you can use the chat box. Let's make it as quick as possible so we'll be done and go and enjoy our evening. Any question? Okay, while we wait for the other people to join, I want to make a comment and then ask a question or ask some questions. And the comment is the first, I kind of like what you said about is it the combo pricing, the tied pricing model? Forgotten the other name.
Yeah, bundle dot, yeah.
Yeah, bundle dot, yeah. And I can relate to something that happened to me of recent. There was this intending client who kind of reached out to us for one of the services we render. And while they were speaking to us, they kind of brought up this strategy about having spoken to a competitor and also listed out the services, the activities that the competitor promised to deliver, since our prices seems to be almost the same. So they were kind of compelling us to also offer all those services, or rather all those activities that the competitor kind of offered. And in our own, we also have our own our own activities tied to each of our services. And I made sure that I was able to explain to them that we all have our unique selling points. Our unique selling points will certainly be different from our competitors. And that could also bring us to what our bundled pricing strategy could be. And now to my question, for some of us here, we are not all running a business that is product-based. some of us are actually running businesses that are service-based. We have food consultants that are here. Even if they are not on this call, we still believe that we'll share the recordings, that those who are not able to make it to the call will be able to view. So now, and for consultants like myself, I would say, one thing I know is very important is actually our time. And because that is what makes that is what will quantify, or is what will determine the salary I'm going to pay myself as someone who is actually the person giving out the services at the end of the day. So how do I value my time?
Thank you very much, Immaculate. That's a very good question. I'm also a consultant. As an architect, I do a lot of design consultancy jobs for clients. And I can assure you, consultancy is the most highly marginalized business, in the sense that in several instances, pricing in consultancy has been controlled in three manners. Either there's an industry standard you want to follow, right? That's one. Or there are other competition, several other. By industry standard, I mean, maybe there's a governing body, a council, that has already set the pricing for such consultancy services. Like in architecture, we already have like a council for that, and then we try to work within that. Or you look at what the industry is already saying. That way you are sizing. You've already sized the client to match up with the industry, because that's the challenge with looking at the industry. Looking at the industry as well as the governing body and the decision they make in those things, because the client is the major person. Many clients cannot even pay those industry standards, and you need to serve them one way or the other, right? So you have to find a way to size them. So what I have naturally found helpful in service-based business still remains what we've discussed. First of all, look at all the costs. Try to imagine all the costs. If you are doing this for the first time, then it becomes a problem, right? You likely feel cheated after the first consultancy job. But if this is something you'll be doing repeatedly, then itemizing the total cost to do that job might not necessarily be a challenge. So what I have done is itemizing all the costs from how much time it will take me to do that job. What are the resources I'll need to explore or utilize to get that job done? How much would those resources cost me and everything? And then I then add value to it, right? And that value is dependent on the customer size. So in some instances, I've also used the competition to look at it, especially when the client already gave me a hint, like, Emmanuel, I spoke to this person, or this person gave me this price, but I don't think he can do it. And then he's now coming to meet me to talk about it, right? So one, he has done two things. He has made me realize that somebody has given him a value that he doesn't think is worth it. And then two, there's already an alternative person he can run back to if my pricing is too much. So it becomes a dilemma. But what I try to do in such regard is just look out for the total cost I'm going to spend getting that job done, from fixed to variable cost, to hidden cost, all of it together, and then attach a perception of value based on what I see that customer is able to afford. I also do some benchmark. In some other instances, I do benchmark a lot. So one thing I do about I do what we call this regular window shopping, right? So I can just ask, like, there is a project that needs to be done, and I'll request for consultancy to come and do it. I'll just put it out there. I'll specifically say that there's no assurance you'll get the job, or that kind of thing. Everybody will submit their pricing to me, and I'm able to use that as a tool to determine what my own price could look like also. That's looking at the competition. So there are different, like I said, there are three different ways. Either the regulators have already set a price for it, or the industry has already set a price for it based on competition in that area, or you look at the value your customer can get from using that service, especially looking at the fact that your customer can really afford that value. So I always say value is from the perception of the customer, not necessarily from your own perception. So those are the three key ways you have to look at that. But whatever you do, just ensure that profit is assured. Even if it is 1 naira, there's profit in it one way or the other. So people talk about PRs, pro bono services. I don't do pro bono services. No matter how I would do pro bono, there must be an element of profit in it. At least the cost I would expend to do that job must be paid for. I cannot be running at a loss, whichever way or the other. So maybe that is what they call pro bono. But for me, I believe pro bono is doing something entirely for free, which is not what I do. One way or the other, there must be a fee paid, to cover the basic costs involved, and I'm very fine. So I don't know if that answers your question, Immaculate.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you. Does any other person have any question? Any other question?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hi, Emmanuel. Thank you. Your presentation was really good. I just have a quick question. I believe like if you're running a business and you're selling some products, most of your profit comes from turnover, yeah? And then in the case where like where you are based, like we talked about factors that influences the price. And then you're also trying to make your product competitive, but maybe you don't really have access to like direct suppliers, like in terms of the raw materials, and maybe your competitors, like they are able to get that. And in that case, their own prices is like cheaper than yours. Do you have like any suggestions on what you can potentially do to like match the market in
Um,
terms of the price?
yeah, to be very sincere, that's a dilemma. Have you been able to? I would like you to keep your mic on, Nina, because we'll converse together on this. Have you been able to find out what's the challenge with you getting the direct suppliers?
Sorry, this is not like really a direct question.
I know. What do you think would be the challenge to meeting directly with the suppliers?
I would think maybe the amount you are getting, because sometimes if you're starting off small, for instance, they might want you to like get a particular amount before you can assess them. Otherwise, that you get like from retailers, if that makes sense.
Awesome. So the thing now would be so your price might be a little bit more expensive compared to those who are able to purchase in volume. That's what we call economics of scale. The more you produce, the lesser the cost of production, which everybody clearly understands. But what I have recommended to be done in that regard are two things. Find a way to negotiate a lower price for whatever it is from the supplier, from the dealer who has direct service with the supplier. To put this in perspective, even with us at Zero Emissions, which is my startup, many of the equipment we sell, we don't have the capacity to import them directly. We had even reached out to the direct manufacturers. They said they already have somebody they are working with locally here. We have to work with them. So what we decided to do was look out for those persons and then strike a partnership, sort of partnership with them, selling the same products one way or the other, but at a reduced margin. So one other thing you can also look out for is, can you sell to a specific sort of customers that has no idea that that other person, that's the other major dealer, can exists? You know, he doesn't know that major dealer exists, or due to some challenges, that major dealer can never reach out to those persons.
It does, yeah.
Right. So can you look out for those customer base and try to sell to those ones if they really need that product or service? So in Climate Launchpad, there's this thing we teach around choosing your market niche. We call it total global domination in your choosing market niche. And what that means is pick a small market that anywhere in the world, if they call who the leader is, it is you they will call in that market. There might be others who might be much expensive or much more cheaper than you somewhere else. But as far as that location is concerned, that is your cabal. Because for one reason or the other, those persons can never come there. Maybe logistic challenges, supply chain challenges might make it difficult for them to come and target that customer. Or you've built a loyal customer base with those persons, right? And they just find it difficult to switch. So those are the other two areas you can find a way to manage that. Just selling entirely to a sector that doesn't know those persons exist, or those persons can never reach out to them based on one challenge or the other. And I think you'll be just fine. And then continue to look for resources that could help you scale up quickly. So is it looking for funding? Once you build your early traction, start looking for funding entirely that can help you begin to match up with those, competition, right? And that'll be fine. Or can you do some value add? That is where the bundled or tiered system comes into play, right? So can you do some value add in whatever it is you're providing? So rather than buying this one item, this cheap, can you sell like 3 or 4 items to them at once in a bundle? Similarly used assets that does the same. Closely, they work together. And you bundle up the whole 4 at once. That way you can reduce the costs, of each of those items to nearly reach what your competitors are doing. But you know that because you're already selling 4 items at once, you are making more money. So that turnover is already, added up one way or the other. So these are some strategies you can deploy. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Nina.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
It does make sense, but to add also to the solutions or strategies like you've already mentioned, I think another thing that you might want to do, Nina, is to this time around maybe check what your strengths or your weaknesses are, and how you can actually more like collaborating with those your competitors. I will explain further. Like I know your competitors could be people are people who use the same raw material that you use, you understand? And which means you can actually strike a deal with them, collaborate with them. Maybe not the big competitors, but people who are in the same strength as you are when it comes to production. Other small scale or micro scale food manufacturers who uses your raw material, you can just combine with them and you can source those raw materials from the direct suppliers. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's aggregating the various other small scale producers like you coming together so that you guys can be able to buy
Like
it
a whole,
bulk. Yes, and then do that. I think that would be fine. If that's possible, I think that would be very much fine. In fact, it then makes you become a major dealer. If you're able to be the one to arrange that or collaboration, trust me, you're already a big boy or a big woman. Because everybody will see you as the person spearheading it. And before you know it, you might even become a major dealer. It's a very big thing. But then having to find such persons might be a bit of a challenge, but it's really not out of place. Well done. Okay. Any other questions? You're welcome.
Yeah, before we close for the day, I would just want you to add a word on this how we can leverage branding, because when everybody's talking about branding, we have a lot of people doing the same thing as we do. How can we leverage branding to support our pricing strategy?
Yeah, so interestingly, I tell entrepreneurs that branding is not all about colors and logos. There is an emotional attachment to branding. There's a psychological attachment to branding. Branding is all about your business, everything you do. Branding isn't just about marketing, but marketing drives branding. So what I encourage entrepreneurs to do in this regard is, first of all, build some standards or some culture, core values that resonates with you. Like anybody who wants anything and he shares such core values with you, he would always come to meet you, right? That's one. That's what branding starts with. It starts with the value within your organization. You know, the way somebody, okay, take a look at who is the most pompous bank? Which bank do you think is most pompous in Nigeria? Does anybody have an idea? What's your perception? Like, I mean pompous, the employees, everybody is so proud. Is there any bank like that? I know some of them. I know some of them. Thank you. GT Bank. Like, they are so proud because it's part of them. That's how they carry themselves. You know, when you see all employees having the same attitude, that lets you know what it's that. So most of the people who use GT banks are majorly millennials and Gen Zs, right? They started making money when they allowed everybody to start opening banks. And the level of respect that people had then and the level of respect people have now are different. Now, nobody sends anybody. That's just the truth. So that's what that generation of their customers are bringing into. There's a bank I know that they don't necessarily brag, but when you call them for speaking events, when you see them outside, you know that these persons, they are here to show themselves. One very good example is UBA. Anywhere UBA goes to present, you must know that there's a UBA there. There's always red everywhere once they want to speak or something, you know? So that is the sort of, and it attracts some sort of customers that look out for them. What branding also helps you do is have some loyal fan base, really. Some persons who resonate with you. You know, they buy these things because they feel your vibe, they feel you. Whenever you speak, you are just saying what gets to them, and they are so happy to hear whatever it is you want to say, whether it is valued or not, right? So to start with branding, I think starts to build some set of core values for your organization and make sure all your employees work within such core values, right? And then when you have such core values, begin to communicate that core values to your stakeholders and to your customers generally. These communications could be as simple as whenever a customer is sending you his success stories, try to pick from that success stories you're getting and what elements of core values this customer is talking about you and buttress that, right? So whenever your employees are doing some things, look at how that matches with your core values and share it out. Please, branding is not just a function of color. There's always a physical and emotional perception to it. And what branding allows you to do is find some loyal customer base who resonate with everything that you do. And no matter how you move your price upward, because they are already loyal to you, they'll be willing to buy more from you. But branding becomes dead if marketing and advertisement is not leveraged. So one way to also build your brand is to be present in several social media platforms. If you can use technology digest, industry events, whatever, just to showcase your brands to people. Let them see you. They'll see it in you, in your employees, on your website, on your pages. They will see it in your customers themselves, how they pride themselves in whatever product or service they are enjoying from you. Then that makes it much more easy. So I don't know if that addressed that point, Immaculate.
Awesome. Awesome. Because, ah, wow. Thank you so much. I would say I don't know how many times I'm going to say thank you, but thank you once more for this awesome presentation, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much.
It was quite insightful. And I know everyone that is on this call agrees with me.
I hope so too. The class was a little bit quiet. I was expecting more engagement, but I clearly understand. Perhaps the timing was not right.
Timing.
Yeah, so it looks like some other persons are doing some other things while these conversations are going on. But that's awesome. But feel free to reach out to me, or if you have other questions, reach out to Immaculate, and I'm sure she can easily. Immaculate is just like a chat away. So that's how close it is to get to me also. So thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed my time, and yeah, well done.
Thank you. We hope to do this again.
Of course. Anytime.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nena. Thank you, Olajide. Bye.